The virtual reality park, once an oasis of digital dreams, had become a stage for nightmares. Bite whispers and ghostly echoes filled the air, turning fun into panic. These weren't just projected images, something, or someone, was manipulating the boundary between real and virtual, causing avatars to haunt their players with disturbing ferocity. Mystery Incorporated, accustomed to unmasking disguises and noisy machines, now faced a challenge where truth could be a code and the villain, a data ghost. But how do you fight something that no one can touch, yet touches everyone? The Mystery Machine's siren wailed, breaking the night silence as the team approached Infinitum VR Park. Neon lights flickered in shades of blue and purple, contrasting with the pale expressions of visitors fleeing in disarray, some stumbling, others looking back with wide eyes, as if still seeing the digital ghosts that pursued them. Another haunting case, Shaggy grumbled, clutching Scooby even tighter. The Great Dane yelped in agreement, the fur on his back bristling. But this one's different, Shaggy. It's digital. Velma corrected, adjusting her glasses. Her eyes gleamed with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Fred, with his determined demeanor, was already analyzing the park's futuristic architecture. Our client is Dr. Elias Thorne, the creator of Infinitum, Daphne explained, as she led the team through the main entrance, where confusion still reigned. He claims a mysterious virus is possessing the avatars and turning them into digital abominations. In the center of the vast entrance plaza, a tall, slender figure, with disheveled gray hair and tired eyes, awaited them. It was Dr. Thorne. "Detectives! So glad you came," he exclaimed, his voice choked with stress. "I don't know what else to do. The park is losing millions, visitors are terrified. And worse, I swear it's not a flaw in my system. It's something more." "Something more?" Fred asked skeptically. "Can you explain exactly what's happening?" Dar. Thorne led them to one of the experience domes, a giant translucent sphere where visitors interacted with virtual reality simulators. Inside, holographic screens showed scenes of chaos, distorted avatars, with glowing red eyes and digital claws, emerging from nowhere and attacking players, causing panic and damage. A sharp scream echoed from a nearby simulator, where a woman, still wearing VR goggles, gesticulated frantically, as if being suffocated. "They materialize," Thorne explained, pointing to the screen. "Not like common projections. They seem to come out of the screen, physically interacting. There have been reports of scratches, pushes, as if they were real." Daphne, with her usual calm, approached the terrified woman. "Ma'am, are you okay? Can you tell us what happened?" The woman, still trembling, took off her goggles. He touched me. A monster with digital tentacles grabbed me. I felt the claws." While Daphne tried to calm the victim, Fred was already on his tablet, inspecting the dome's control terminals. "Dr. Thorne, can you give us access to the servers? We need all system data, error logs, everything." Of course. My central lab is open for you. Do whatever it takes," Thorne said, desperate. Velma was already on her way to the lab, her eyes fixed on the code scrolling across the monitor screens. "If there's a virus, it'll leave a trace." "Nothing's invisible to a good code analyst," she murmured to herself, already immersed in binary logic. Scooby and Shaggy, on the other hand, were more interested in the virtual food simulators. "Look, Shaggy! An infinite pizza simulator!" Scooby exclaimed, salivating. Shaggy nodded, eyes wide. "They said it was to test the equipment, didn't they?" Ignoring the duo's gastronomic enthusiasm, Fred and Daphne began to question the park staff. No one seemed to have seen anything unusual backstage, only the terrifying reports from visitors. A heavy atmosphere hung over Infinitum, the joy of yesteryear replaced by palpable fear. As the night progressed, Velma delved deeper into the park's source code. Lines upon lines of programming scrolled across the screen, and she felt a pang of frustration. No sign of an obvious virus, no evident flaws. But something was wrong. The system was complex, yes, but the foundation was solid. What was causing these anomalies? Suddenly, an anomaly in one of the security logs caught her attention. Unauthorized access, a data tunnel created from outside into the system, at specific times. It was as if someone was injecting something, but not a common virus. It was something more subtle, more targeted. Fred, Daphne. Come here. Velma shouted, her voice filled with excitement. I think I found something. It's not a virus, it's a backdoor. Someone's manipulating the system remotely. Velma's revelation shed new light on the mystery. It wasn't a random virus, it was a targeted attack. Someone was orchestrating the digital ghosts of Infinitum VR Park. A backdoor? Fred repeated, approaching Velma's monitor. Who would have the knowledge to create something like this, and more importantly, why? Exactly. It's a secret entry, like a service door that only someone with the key can use, Velma explained, pointing to the lines of code. And this key has been used repeatedly. The anomalies in the logs perfectly matched the reports of ghost attacks. Daphne, who was on the phone with one of the park's security engineers, hung up and joined them. The engineer confirmed there are no records of internal failures that could cause this. He even mentioned that the system's security is practically impenetrable to common external attacks. Which leads us to believe the attacker is someone with privileged access or someone who knows Infinitum's architecture inside out, Fred concluded. Dr. Thorne gave us full access to the servers. We need to trace this connection. Where does this backdoor originate? While Velma tracked the IPs and connections, Scooby and Shaggy appeared in the lab, bellies full and smiles satisfied. Those food simulators are amazing. Shaggy said, burping discreetly. I had a pepperoni pizza that tasted real. And a triple cheeseburger. Scooby completed, licking his chops. Fred sighed, but a glimmer of an idea sparked in his eyes. You guys tested the simulators. Did you feel anything strange, besides the food? Shaggy and Scooby exchanged glances, thoughtful. Well, no, Shaggy said. Just a weird cheese smell sometimes. Smell? Velma asked, raising an eyebrow. Do the food simulators have odor sensors? Some of the most advanced ones, yes, Fred replied. But that's a detail. We need to focus on the backdoor. Velma, any clues? Velma typed frantically. I'm getting close. The traces are well disguised, but they're not invisible. It's like trying to follow a ghost on the network, but digital ghosts still leave digital fingerprints. Suddenly, an alarm sounded in the lab. Red lights flashed and a computerized voice announced, intrusion detected in Sector Alpha, 7. Imminent lockdown. Sector Alpha, 7. That's where the most advanced experience simulators are, said Thorne, who had joined them. The ones that reproduce physical sensations with greater fidelity. Our digital ghost friends must have come to pay us a visit, Fred said with a determined smile. This is our chance to confront them up close. Let's go to Alpha, 7. As they ran through the park's dark corridors, emergency lights flickered, casting eerie shadows. Scooby and Shaggy were trembling, but Fred's sense of adventure and Velma's curiosity drove them forward. Daphne, as always, maintained her calm and composure, ready for any situation. Upon reaching Sector Alpha, 7, the scene was chaotic. Several visitors were in a panic, some still trapped in their simulators, screaming. Distorted and grotesque avatars, with glowing red eyes, floated in the air, seemingly coming out of the screens and interacting with people. One of them, with long digital tentacles, tried to grab a woman, who screamed at the top of her lungs. They're more than just projections. Daphne exclaimed, shocked. Look! They're touching people. Fred observed intently. It's a very well-crafted illusion, but it's still an illusion. Velma, can you disable the sector? I'm trying. There's interference in the system, Velma replied, typing on her tablet. Someone is amplifying the avatar's effect, perhaps using haptic technology. That's why they seem physical. While Velma tried to disable the interference, Fred noticed a pattern in the attacks. The avatars weren't just scaring, they were directing the panic to a specific area of the sector, one simulator in particular. Scooby, Shaggy. Keep an eye out for anything strange you notice in the simulators, especially the food ones. Fred instructed. The duo, despite their fear, agreed and began to investigate the food simulators, using their keen noses to detect anything out of the ordinary. Suddenly, one of the ghostly avatars materialized right in front of Fred, its red eyes fixed on him. It was a shapeless specter, with elongated and distorted limbs. Fred tried to dodge, but the avatar seemed to anticipate his movements, as if the system knew where he would go. Fred, watch out! Daphne shouted, who was trying to calm the visitors. The avatar extended a translucent arm and tried to grab Fred, but he narrowly dodged. The cold and repulsive sensation, even without actual physical contact, was disturbing. Velma finally managed to break through the interference, and the sector's red light stabilized. The ghost avatars began to glitch, their forms flickering and disintegrating. The panic subsided, and visitors began to breathe a sigh of relief. Still not enough. Velma exclaimed. The back door is still active. And I found the origin, an IP address that connects to a secondary server, outside the park's main network. It's very well disguised, but I'm tracking it. A secondary server. Fred murmured, thoughtful. Who else would have access to something like that? And what's the connection to the physical sensation simulators? The digital specter suddenly materialized again, this time weaker, but still present, and pointed to the food simulator that Scooby and Shaggy were investigating. Look, Shaggy. He's pointing at the pizza smell simulator. Scooby said, who had noticed the gesture. Velma looked at the spot the ghost was pointing to. The cheese smell. Dr. Thorne mentioned that some advanced simulators had odor sensors. She frowned. Fred, Daphne, is it possible that the attacker isn't just injecting images, but also sensations? What if he's using the park's own sensors to manipulate visitors' perception? The mystery was deepening, and the team realized they were dealing with more than just digital projections. Something or someone was using the park's own technology against it. The connection between the digital ghosts and the physical sensation simulators seemed to be the key to unraveling the mystery. Fred, Velma, and Daphne gathered in Thorne's lab, analyzing the collected data. If someone is using odor and touch sensors to create these sensations, that would explain why victims feel like they're being touched, Velma argued, pointing to the simulator diagrams. It's not that the avatars are coming out of the screen, but rather that the system is inducing the sensations of contact. But for Dr. Thorne not to notice, the attacker needs to have intimate knowledge of the system and access to the communication protocols between the different park modules, Fred added, crossing out some notes in his notebook. Who, besides Thorne himself, would have that level of access? And who would have a motive for this? Daphne asked, thoughtful. Financial loss, perhaps. A competitor wanting to sabotage Infinitum. Dr. Thorne, who was present, shook his head. I have no rivals of that caliber. My technology is unique. And anyone who tried to replicate it would be immediately sued. Meanwhile, Scooby and Shaggy, tasked with testing more simulators, were in the virtual reality sector dedicated to extreme sports. They were trying to surf giant waves, with Scooby almost swallowing a virtual surfboard. Phew! That wave almost got me. Scooby exclaimed, panting. But the weirdest thing is that the wind, it feels so real. Shaggy said, feeling his hair being blown by the virtual breeze. Velma, who was monitoring the simulator feeds remotely, noticed an unusual spike in the wind and humidity sensors in the sector where Scooby and Shaggy were. "Fred, Daphne, come see this. It looks like the attacker is expanding the range of effects. It's not just touch and odor sensations, but also wind and humidity. That means the ghostly specter is becoming more immersive," Fred concluded. "And Dr. Thorne still hasn't detected anything in his main system. Because the backdoor is operating at a communication level below standard security protocols," Velma explained. "It's as if the attacker is interfering with the signal, altering the information before it reaches the security system." The team headed to the secondary server room, a labyrinth of cables and flashing lights. There, Velma managed to trace the backdoor's origin to a small device connected to one of the racks. "It's a customized interface module," Velma said, examining the device. "It's intercepting and modifying the simulator signals before they are processed by the park's main system. It's very sophisticated reverse engineering. That means the attacker not only has privileged access, but is also a tech genius, perhaps even more so than Dr. Thorne himself," Fred observed. Daphne picked up the device. "No marks, no identification. How will we know who built it?" "I have an idea," Velma said, her eyes fixed on the device. "If this interface connects to a secondary server, it means the attacker needs to be somewhere nearby or have a very robust communication system to manage the distance." Suddenly, a secondary security alarm began to blare. "Intrusion detected in the prototype development lab," the computerized voice announced. "The prototype lab? No one has access there, except me and my most restricted team," Thorne said, surprised. "Looks like our digital ghost has a fondness for secret places," Fred said with a determined smile. "Let's go there." Upon arriving at the prototype lab, the scene was even stranger than expected. The lights were dim, and a hooded figure stood before a series of screens, where projections of digital ghosts danced and floated. The figure seemed to be controlling them with subtle gestures. "It's him. The digital ghost," exclaimed Shaggy, who had followed the team, along with Scooby. Fred tried to approach, but the figure turned abruptly, and a distorted, electronic voice echoed through the lab. "You shouldn't be here. This is my domain." The figure extended a hand, and several ghostly avatars materialized from the air, advancing towards the team. They weren't just projections, the lab seemed to distort, the walls flickered, and the floor seemed to sink. The experience was overwhelming, the mind struggling to differentiate between real and unreal. "He's using virtual reality to manipulate us," Velma exclaimed, dizzy. "It's an advanced augmented reality simulator." Daphne tried to defuse the situation. "Who are you? Why are you doing this?" The figure laughed, a metallic, distorted sound. "I am the future. And you are just echoes of the past." One of the ghosts, a specter with long, sharp claws, advanced towards Scooby, who let out a terrified yelp and tried to run, but seemed stuck to the floor. Shaggy tried to pull him, but also seemed trapped in the illusion. Fred realized that the hooded figure's gloves were glowing, and something was connected to them. Their interface gloves. He's using them to control the avatars and manipulate sensations. "We need to disable the power source of the gloves," Velma shouted. "Or disable the projection." The hooded figure intensified the attack, and the lab filled with more ghosts, creating a cacophony of screams and digital noises. The team was trapped in a web of illusions, and time was running out. The attack in the prototype lab was unlike anything Mystery Incorporated had ever faced. It wasn't just about machines or projections, the adversary was manipulating the very perception of reality, making the distinction between what was real and what was illusion almost impossible. Fred, with his analytical mind, tried to focus on the details. "It's an augmented reality projection, but with haptic and sound effects. If we disable the power source for the gloves, the ghosts should disappear." Daphne, acting quickly, threw her silk scarf over one of the glowing gloves of the hooded figure, trying to block the signal. The figure roared in frustration, and the digital ghosts around them flickered for an instant, as if they had malfunctioned. "It's an inhibitor," Velma shouted, who was trying to find a way to disable the system. "If we block the gloves, we'll cut off the control." The hooded figure, sensing the danger, retreated, but not before one of the digital ghosts lunged at Fred. The specter, now more solid and disturbing, seemed to materialize, and Fred felt an icy chill and a sharp pain in his arm, as if he had actually been scratched. "Arg! He got me!" Fred exclaimed, recoiling. The scratch on his arm, though not bleeding, was visible and painful, like a deep cut. Scooby and Shaggy, still trapped in the illusion of the sinking floor, bawled for help. "We're falling. Failing!" Shaggy cried. "Scooby-Dooby-Doo! Scooby-Dooby-Doo!" Scooby repeated, clinging to Shaggy's leg. Dr. Thorne, who had hidden behind a table, watched the scene in shock. "This is impossible. My technology wasn't designed for this." He distorted it. The hooded figure, with a swift movement, projected an image of an intricate virtual labyrinth, surrounding the team. It was a nightmare scenario, with constantly moving walls and distorted sounds. "You're trapped in my nightmare. You'll never get out," echoed the electronic voice. Velma, despite the dizziness and fear, managed to stay calm. "Fred, Daphne. We need to identify this person. If he can do this, he's not a simple hacker. He's someone who understands Dr. Thorne's technology in depth." Fred, still with a sore arm, noticed a detail. As the figure gestured, part of his cloak shifted, revealing an identification badge attached to his belt. It was a familiar logo. "Daphne, look at his belt. It's the Infinitum logo," Fred exclaimed. "He's an employee. Or used to be." Daphne approached, and the badge revealed the name, Dr. Victor Cyberg. Dr. Thorne gasped. "Victor? My old protégé. It can't be. He was brilliant, but unstable. Dr. Victor Cyberg? The neural interface specialist?" Velma asked, her eyes wide. "He worked with Dr. Thorne on developing the park's first prototypes. He had a total immersion project that was rejected for being too dangerous." The hooded figure, now revealed as Dr. Cyberg, laughed maniacally. "I am the future. Thorne never understood the true potential of virtual reality. I'll show him what total immersion is." Cyberg intensified the illusion, and the labyrinth became more chaotic, with digital ghosts appearing from all sides, attacking the team more aggressively. The scratch on Fred's arm seemed to burn, and he realized the pain was real, not just an illusion. Cyberg was using technology to induce physical pain through neural stimuli. He's using the same principles of sensation simulation, but amplified to cause pain. Velma exclaimed, analyzing the readings on her tablet. "It's too dangerous. We need to stop him before someone gets seriously hurt." Daphne, with a plan in mind, ran towards one of the screens, where one of the digital ghosts was about to attack Scooby and Shaggy, who were still trapped in the illusion. She used a fire extinguisher to knock down the screen, and the ghosts connected to it disintegrated. "We've got him, Daphne!" Fred shouted. "If we cut his connection to the screens, we can disable the projection." Cyberg, furious, launched a concentrated attack on Daphne, creating a wall of digital ghosts that surrounded her. Fred tried to reach her, but was blocked by a specter that looked like a monster with tentacles. As the battle intensified, Velma noticed a pattern in Cyberg's attacks. He seemed to be more vulnerable when he was focused on a single projection. "He's using maximum bandwidth to maintain all the illusions," Velma shouted. "If we can overload his system, we can cause a crash." The team was cornered, fighting illusions that felt painfully real. The revelation of Cyberg's identity didn't make the task easier, but now they knew who they were fighting against. The digital nightmare was becoming a very personal nightmare. The tension in the prototype lab was palpable. With each passing second, the intensity of Cyborg's illusions increased, and the team struggled to resist the attacks of the digital ghosts. The scratch on Fred's arm burned, and the pain was proof that Cyborg's technology had reached a dangerous level. "He's overloading us sensually," Velma shouted, struggling to maintain control of her tablet as the lab walls seemed to undulate. "He's using all the park's resources for this illusion." "If he's using all the resources, then he's overloading his own system," Fred exclaimed, an idea sparking in his mind. "We need to create an even greater overload. Velma, can you reverse the signal? Channel the park's own energy against him?" "It's risky, Fred. It could cause a collapse of the entire infinitum system," Velma warned, but her fingers were already flying across the keyboard. "But if we succeed, we can fry his system." While Velma worked on reversing the signal, Daphne, with her agility, managed to dodge the ghost attacks. She realized that Cyborg, despite all his power, had a blind spot. He was so focused on maintaining the illusions that he forgot about the real world. "Scooby, Shaggy. Get out of the illusion. Look at what's really happening," Daphne shouted, trying to get the attention of the duo, who were still trapped in the sinking floor. Scooby, with a terrified yelp, managed to crawl out of the illusion's main impact area. Shaggy followed him, trembling. The two, though still scared, began to realize that the lab walls, despite looking wavy, were solid. "It's not real. It's not real," Shaggy murmured, clinging to a piece of equipment. "It just looks real." Dr. Thorne, who had recovered from the initial shock, realized what the team was trying to do. "Victor. Stop this. You're going to destroy everything we've built." Cyborg, ignoring Thorne's plea, focused on launching waves of digital ghosts at the team. He was consumed by his own genius and resentment. Thorne never understood. "He blocked me. My total immersion project was supposed to be the next frontier. But he deemed it too dangerous." Cyborg shouted, his voice filled with bitterness. "Now I'll show him what too dangerous can do. He's taking revenge." Daphne realized. He wants to destroy Dr. Thorne's reputation and infinitums. Velma, with a triumphant shout, managed to activate the signal reversal. The lab lights flickered furiously, and Cyborg's digital ghosts began to tremble violently, their forms distorting and shrinking. "It's working. His system is overloading," Velma exclaimed, sweat trickling down her face. Cyborg, realizing he was losing control, tried to resist, but the force of the reversal was too much. He knelt, holding his head, and the interface gloves on his hands began to spark. "No. No. My creation. I can't lose it," Cyborg cried, desperate. As Cyborg's system failed, the illusions disintegrated. The floor stopped sinking, the walls stabilized, and the ghosts disappeared, leaving behind only the residual image of a nightmare. Fred, despite the pain in his arm, took advantage of Cyborg's weakness. "Now, Daphne. He's unprotected." Daphne, with a quick movement, threw an electromagnetic pulse generator, which Fred always carried for emergencies, at Cyborg. The device emitted a strong pulse, which fried the interface gloves and the small custom module he used to control the systems. Cyborg fell, the gloves burned and his illusion projection completely deactivated. He still mumbled, but his voice was no longer electronic, just a whisper of despair. The team approached Cyborg. He was a brilliant man, but one who had lost himself in the darkness of his own ambition and resentment. Dr. Thorne, with a sad look, knelt beside his former protégé. "Victor. Why did you do this?" Thorne asked, his voice choked. "You rejected me, Elias. Rejected my vision." Cyborg murmured, his eyes fixed on the ceiling. "The world isn't ready for total immersion, but I was going to force it. I was going to prove I was right. The team had finally unmasked the digital ghost. It wasn't a virus, nor a supernatural entity. It was a tech genius, driven by revenge and distorted ambition. The truth was, as always, more complex than it seemed, and the danger lay in the human mind, not in the bytes. Infinitum VR Park, free from Victor Cyberg's digital hauntings, relit its lights, a testament to human resilience in the face of technological obsession. Mystery Incorporated departed, leaving behind proof that not even the most advanced code can hide the true intentions of a wounded heart. The experience served as a grim reminder: the boundary between real and virtual is malleable, and the greatest illusion lies in the belief that technology, by itself, can fill emotional voids. The price of perfection, after all, is the soul.